Hello. I hope you're having a good day. Today we'll explore the movie titled The Sadness. The story begins with a young couple, Jim and his girlfriend, Kat, waking up together in Taipei. Jim asks Kat not to go to work today, but she refuses, saying she has to. She then reminds him about their upcoming trip to Kenting, something Jim had forgotten. Kat explains that a friend has asked for her help with a job involving a German advertising agency, and the pay is too good to pass up. Meanwhile, on television, a doctor discusses the Alvin virus. He states that experts are terrified of its mutation potential and explains that the latent protein chains in Alvin are similar to those found in rabies. The doctor warns the public to take the outbreak seriously, assuring them that Alvin is a real threat to public health. Jim steps out onto the balcony to get some fresh air and sees an elderly woman on a nearby rooftop. He calls out to check if she's okay, and she slowly turns toward him, revealing her clothes soaked in blood. Before Jim can react, the woman disappears. Shaken, he looks away and continues speaking with Kat. Jim then talks to his neighbor, Mr. Lin, from his balcony and notices the man seems ill. Jim suggests he visit a hospital, but Mr. Lin dismisses the idea, saying doctors will just send him home to rest. He also disregards the news about the virus, claiming it's all a hoax. Eventually, Jim and Kat arrive at the train station, where Jim assures her he'll make it up to her by cooking dinner later. After saying goodbye, he heads home and notices the same police car he saw earlier, but now its doors are wide open and the officers are nowhere in sight. Feeling uneasy, he stops at a restaurant to grab something to eat. There he sees the same elderly woman from the rooftop, now covered in blood with dark, terrifying eyes. Suddenly, she spits on a customer before throwing boiling oil on the vendor. Chaos erupts when the spit-covered man becomes violent and repeatedly stabs his friend in the neck, terrifying everyone around. Jim, shocked, quietly backs away and exits the restaurant, just in time to see the old woman get run over by a passing car. However, the driver appears as erratic as the crazed woman. At that moment, Jim realizes that everyone has been infected by something. As the situation spirals out of control, he runs for his life with the infected close behind. He makes it back to his apartment and locks himself in, trying to call Kat. When he turns on the TV, he sees every channel broadcasting the same emergency alert, except one, which strangely plays a cartoon. Soon, Jim hears a chilling announcement outside ordering all men to report to the district office. Shockingly, the broadcaster casually mentions that men will be castrated, while women will be assaulted in the streets. This sends Jim into a panic, deeply worried about Kat's safety. He quickly messages her, asking where she is, but while focused on his phone, he doesn't notice someone approaching from the balcony. Still absorbed in his phone, Jim sends Kat another message explaining what's happening and that he's coming to find her. Suddenly, he becomes aware of the danger behind him. He turns to see Mr. Lin, now infected, lunging at him with pruning shears. Jim barely manages to grab the blades, but in the struggle, 2 of his fingers are severed. Screaming in pain, he kicks Mr. Lin to the ground. To his horror, the infected man grabs one of the severed fingers, bites it, and then spits it out. Acting quickly, Jim grabs his phone and rushes out while Mr. Lin begins to rise again. Outside, Jim hastily wraps his injured hand with a cloth he finds on a parked motorcycle. At that moment, he witnesses a group of infected people savagely attacking a young man. Wasting no time, Jim runs again and finally reaches his motorbike. He tries to start it silently to avoid drawing the infected nearby, but the engine noise alerts them. He speeds away as they begin to chase him. Meanwhile, Kat is riding a train on her way to work, engrossed in a novel. Her peace is disrupted when a businessman starts speaking to her insistently. Choosing to ignore him, she stands up and lets another passenger take her seat. Just then, chaos erupts when an infected passenger begins stabbing others, quickly turning the train into a terrifying scene of violence. The other passengers manage to subdue the first attacker, but soon another infected individual begins attacking with a knife. It doesn't take long before more people become infected, savagely biting chunks of flesh from their victims. The woman who had taken Kat's seat is suddenly stabbed in the eye by the businessman, forcing Kat to stay as calm as possible amidst the chaos. When the train doors finally open, the passengers rush to escape. Unfortunately, in the confusion, Kat leaves her phone behind. Amid the chaos, she meets another passenger, Molly, who insists they must escape quickly. However, Kat refuses to leave her behind, insisting they must reach the hospital together. Sadly, the businessman catches up to them, forcing them to flee for their lives. During their escape, they encounter another traveler and beg for help, but in a shocking twist, the businessman viciously bites the man's nose and kills him with an axe. With no time to lose, Kat and Molly flee and manage to escape the subway just as a worker closes the door behind them. Enraged that he did nothing to help them, Molly punches him without hesitation. Kat asks the metro worker how to get to the hospital, and he agrees to accompany them. Meanwhile, Jim struggles with nausea as he walks through streets littered with corpses. His horror intensifies when he sees a man doing something horrifying to a dead body, prompting him to speed away in disgust. Needing a break due to blood loss, Jim stops his motorcycle, examines his wound, and rebandages his hand with a cloth to stop the bleeding. He checks his phone for messages from Kat and, in doing so, notices a sickle lying at the roadside and decides to pick it up. Moments later, Jim witnesses a terrifying scene: a group of infected children mercilessly beating a man with baseball bats. The kids seem to be enjoying the cruel game, which compels Jim to step in. He rushes forward and knocks down two of the children, who realize they can't compete with him and quickly flee. However, when Jim tries to help the beaten man, he discovers the victim is also infected and appears to relish the violence. In no time, the kids return, this time throwing rocks at Jim, forcing him to flee once again. Meanwhile, at the hospital, people watch a civil emergency message on television. Kat, Molly, and the subway worker arrive, and the police officers at the entrance let them in. A nurse rushes to assist an injured patient, but one of the officers informs Kat that the emergency room is completely overwhelmed. The nurse tries to take Molly for treatment, but she adamantly refuses to leave Kat's side. Trying to calm her down, Kat consoles her. Touched, Molly thanks her, saying she'll always remember how Kat saved their lives. She finally agrees to go with the nurse while Kat returns to the waiting room with the subway worker. Suddenly, Kat realizes she lost her phone and asks the subway worker if she can use his to call Jim. Meanwhile, the president of Taiwan addresses the nation, assuring the public that the government is working hard to find a solution to the crisis. A general announces that the country is facing a contagious disease that turns ordinary people into extremely violent beings. He warns that the infected will kill an assault, urging the population to follow the guidelines of the National Security Ministry. Unfortunately, the general soon shows signs of infection and suddenly attacks the president, blowing his head off with a grenade. Chaos breaks out in the hospital waiting room as patients panic and begin attacking each other, while the police struggle to contain the situation. Amid the confusion, Kat argues with the subway worker when he refuses to give her back his phone. At that moment, she sees the businessman outside, prompting her to snatch the phone and flee up the stairs. As she escapes, the businessman brutally murders a police officer with his axe and forces his way into the hospital, unleashing panic. Soon, more infected storm into the building, attacking patients uncontrollably. Amid the chaos, the subway worker hides under a stretcher, ignoring Molly, who is left alone in the hallway. Tragically, the businessman finds her and violently attacks her. Meanwhile, Jim finally receives a message from Kat sent from the subway worker's phone. In the message, Kat tells him she lost her phone and is at the hospital. He immediately calls her to assure her he's on his way and urges her to stay calm. He also advises her to find a safe place to hide. But during the conversation, Jim begins to show signs of infection. Despite this, he manages to regain control momentarily and promises Kat he'll arrive at the hospital soon. Unfortunately, Molly discovers the subway worker when he accidentally makes a noise, drawing the attention of several infected. In a shocking twist, the infected quickly overpower him, but before he can be completely devoured, Molly brutally kills him with hospital equipment. Meanwhile, Kat is forced to flee, blocking the hallway doors to protect herself from 2 infected patients and the businessman. However, despite her efforts, the businessman manages to break through the doors and continues chasing her, taunting her with horrific details of what he did to Molly. Refusing to become his next victim, Kat surprises him from behind and brutally kills him by repeatedly bashing his head. At that moment, a man opens the maternity ward door, and Kat quickly slips inside, preventing the infected from following her. The man, who introduces himself as Dr. Wong, points a gun at her and demands that she handcuff herself to a shower pipe. He then turns on the shower, explaining that the liquid is a chemical disinfectant. After observing her for a moment, Wong realizes Kat doesn't appear to be infected and begins to speculate that she might be immune. He asks her blood type, turns off the shower, and orders her to undress to ensure she has no wounds or signs of infection. With no choice, Kat begins to remove her clothes, making sure to keep the subway worker's phone hidden. Once she is fully undressed, Wong turns the shower back on, and Kat struggles to suppress a scream as the cold chemical solution touches her skin. Meanwhile, Jim finally arrives at the hospital. In the ward, Wong unlocks Kat's handcuffs and allows her to get dressed, apologizing for scaring her with his 3D-printed gun. He then explains that he's been trying to warn people about the Alvin virus for over a year, but no one trusts doctors. Wong continues, explaining that the virus affects the limbic system of the brain, suggesting its mutation occurred naturally. He also believes the infected are aware of their actions and understand that what they're doing is atrocious, but their urge for violence is too strong to resist. In short, Wong reveals to Kat that the virus drives the infected to commit the most horrific acts imaginable. He then tells her she needs to undergo a blood test immediately. Kat hides her clothes and the subway worker's phone in a trash container, but at that moment, she hears a baby crying. Curious, she opens the container and discovers an infected baby inside. Before she can process what she's seeing, Wong injects her with a sample of the Alvin virus and handcuffs her to the shower pipe. He then closes the curtain and proceeds to eliminate the baby, telling her that if she shows no signs of infection, they'll head to the rooftop. Wong explains that his intention is to use her to develop a vaccine, but warns her he won't hesitate to kill her if she shows symptoms. Meanwhile, it's revealed that Kat still has the subway worker's phone, but it's locked with a passcode. Wong finally confesses that he has injected the virus into the 8 babies he found in the maternity ward, hoping that one of them might develop valuable antibodies. Wong justifies his actions by saying that if the infected had found the babies, they would have killed them in a much more brutal way. He claims he made the most logical decision available to him in that situation. Meanwhile, Kat manages to guess the subway worker's phone passcode and unlocks it to send a message to Jim. Jim receives the message, but upon reading it, he drops his phone in shock before quickly heading toward the maternity ward. A few minutes later, Wong gets a notification informing him that the helicopter coming to pick him up will arrive in 5 minutes. He gets ready to leave and checks on Kat again, who firmly assures him she's not infected. Shortly after, they both exit the maternity ward together. As they walk down the hallway, Kat notices that the businessman's axe is missing. Suddenly, one of the previously attacked infected patients appears and slices part of Wong's foot. Screaming in pain, Wong shoots the attacker in the head but vomits from the agony of his wound. Moments later, he shoots another infected twice. In his weakened state, Wong begs Kat to help him up, insisting he won't be able to reach the rooftop without her. Kat supports him as they walk, but they soon encounter an infected Jim. When Wong tries to use his gun again, it jams, giving Kat the chance to snatch his keys. Jim seizes the moment and attacks Wong with his sickle. Just before Jim can finish him off, Wong coldly confesses that he enjoyed killing the babies. Wasting no time, Kat quickly opens the rooftop door, leaving Jim in a furious state. Jim then asks Kat how it feels to be infected, to which Kat responds in desperation, her face twisted in ecstasy. Jim tells her that it feels incredible, explaining that he has found a new purpose in life. When Kat asks what that purpose is, Jim chillingly replies that it's to mutilate her body and crush her face. Realizing her boyfriend is beyond redemption, Kat breaks down in tears. However, shortly after she begins to laugh uncontrollably, suggesting she is either psychologically destroyed by all she has endured or that she too may be infected. Kat runs to the rooftop just as the helicopter arrives, but it isn't long before Jim hears a series of gunshots, suggesting that Kat was gunned down. Leaning against the stairwell door, Jim smiles as he dies slowly, leaving a final disturbing image before the movie ends. I hope you enjoyed the video.